All right, quick data dump. Oil is up. Brent crude, West Texas Intermediate North American grade, 81.76. Brent crude back at $86 a barrel, which was where Goldman Sachs said we'd be by the end of the year. We're already there already. Natural gas, $2.73 to the good or to the bad. It's down. Global exchange rates, $1.08 gets you a euro, $1.27 gets you a pound, and the yen actually appreciating a bit from 146 now 145 to the dollar. That's your exchange rate. Crypto prices, 27,243. Bitcoin is coming down a bit. Ethereum, 1,704. Of course, after that court case that has been won by Grayscale against the SEC, Bitcoin and Ethereum have both been climbing. We move on to the Asian markets. China's numbers, purchasing managers index numbers disappointing. So mainland China, the Shanghai Composite Index, that's down. Hong Kong is down. The Hang Seng, the Kospi in Korea is down. The Nikkei 225 is up. That's what we're seeing with the Asian markets. Xi Jinping, apparently, according to Reuters, will be skipping the G20 summit on the 9th and 10th of September. Apparently, he'll be sending Li Qiang in his place. That's what Reuters is reporting. European equities, stock 600, about to the good, 8 basis points. FTSE 100, 4 basis points to the good. DAX over in Germany, 25 basis points to the good. CAC 40 in France, that's down. Just got inflation data from France and the Eurozone. And here it is, 5.3% for August. Forecast was for 5.1, and July was 5.3. The ECB target is 2%, so they might have to keep on hiking. What else do we got? A whole bunch of data. UBS reporting earnings, second quarter earnings this morning. $29 billion is what they made for the second quarter of this year. Credit Suisse, though, pre-tax loss of $10 billion. They're saying they're still focusing on about $10 billion worth of cost savings, perhaps more headcount cuts from as far as the staff is concerned. So they're going to be reducing their staff in order to try to reduce their operating costs, which jumped for UBS. That's what we're seeing over there. What else? There's so much going on today. Tesla apparently is being investigated by the Southern District, the Attorney's Office over in New York, and also the SEC for something called Project 42. Laurie Laird probably is going to give us some more details on that. The board was looking at this back in July, according to the Wall Street Journal. And of course, as we said in the headlines, one of China's biggest property developers, Country Garden, has become the latest real estate giant to warn that it could default on its debts. The firm has racked up debts of more than $150 billion, and this week reported a record $6.7 billion loss for the first 6 months of the year. We mentioned China's manufacturing figures contracting for a 5th straight month in August. Official data showed today as pressure mounts on Beijing to offer more policy support to bolster a sluggish economy. The official manufacturing purchasing managers index, that's the PMI, key measure of factory output, 49.7 in August, below the 50-point mark that separates expansion and contraction, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. We hop over to London, where we're joined by Arise business analyst Laurie Laird. Laurie, good to see you again. Good morning to you.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. What do you make of the
my pleasure.
Eurozone inflation numbers that we're seeing today?
Look, these are not great numbers. And in fact, inflation has been coming down so very quickly, not just in the Eurozone, in the US, in the UK as well. So this came as a bit of a surprise. The headline number didn't keep falling. I don't know if that makes some sense. The headline number went up. That will be extremely concerning to the European Central Bank. The core measure did go down, which shows you that energy, the core measure excludes energy and food, also tobacco and alcoholic beverages in the case of the Eurozone. And core inflation is slightly different from country to country, but it's fair enough to use to compare across countries. Core did fall down. Services price inflation did fall down. And that's a good measure of domestically driven inflation rather than these external things that are imported. So that fell, that will be good news. But the fact that the headline number is going up now will be of great concern. Now, we're not quite sure where the ECB stands. Last week, you and I spoke about that big forum, the Jackson Hole Forum, which is actually a central banker jamboree in Jackson Hole put on by the Kansas City branch of the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell spoke there. Remember, we were really excited to see what he had to say. And what he did say is inflation is still a problem. Christine Lagarde, who we're looking at right now, also spoke, and her speech it didn't touch current monetary policy at all. I had an advanced copy of it, and I was going through it thinking, is she going to say anything? What's her point here? Nothing on current monetary policy, which left people a little bit perplexed because we have the situation where inflation is still a big problem in the Eurozone. Growth is slowing, puts the ECB in a bind. What are they thinking? Into that vacuum that Christine Lagarde left, we've had a number of members of the governing council who vote on policy saying, wait a second, inflation is too high. The head of the Bundesbank, we know that the Bundesbank always thinks inflation is too high. And in fact, wage growth in Germany is rising at a record pace. But we've also had the head of the Latvian central bank, the Austrian central bank, all saying inflation is too high. Balance that, though, against a couple of hours ago, Isabel Schnabel, another member of that rate-setting governing council, said growth prospects have deteriorated markedly since the ECB last met in July. So it's a real quandary for the ECB.
Laurie, excellent breakdown as always. Thank you so much. We've got a gaggle of central bankers in South Africa. Anything coming out of that?
Yeah, really interesting. And it is nice to see, some really high profile central bankers descending on South Africa. We had Raphael Bostic, head of the Atlanta branch of the Federal Reserve, Hugh Pill, the chief economist of the Bank of England. And he really has been Hugh Pill has been the sort of the mouthpiece of the Bank of England because the governor, Andrew Bailey, sort of messes up when he speaks in public. But the most noteworthy thing to my mind to come out was Raphael Bostic, as I mentioned earlier, head of the Atlanta Fed. He was so very dovish earlier today. He said that really rates are restrictive in the U.S. The U.S. has to worry about whether rates are too restrictive, meaning there could be too sharp a slowdown, maybe even a recession. He thinks that underlying inflation could, once you strip out some of the sticky things like rents, actually is at or below the Fed's 2% target. And that's an interesting concept, Rodas, because we see economists strip out various things of getting some sort of sense of what the underlying price situation is. But if you strip out things like food, energy, and rents, it gives you an underlying measure, but we have to pay for those things. That doesn't really show what it feels like for people trying to live. But I was very surprised at how dovish he was. He doesn't vote on policy this year. He attends those FOMC meetings. He doesn't vote until next year, but still his ideas are very worthwhile, really worth listening to.
Indeed. So I guess that's the South Africa, the Reserve Bank Biennial Conference in Cape Town. I got to ask you about China. This news, of course, the country guarding this big loss for the first half of the year, and then the policy response from the Chinese.
Yeah, and look, at these central bank jamborees, when central bankers are talking, even if they don't mention China, it's the elephant in the room. If China slows significantly, that will affect the rest of the world. We think of China, and we're looking at these pictures as this manufacturing hub, and it is a manufacturing hub. It's also a massive consumer economy. The West sells so many things, be it cars, be it those sewing machines that we're looking at. A lot of that equipment comes from the West. A lot of components come from the West. A slowdown is concerning. Now, I digress a bit, and forgive me for that. These numbers we're looking at Country Garden right now, one of the biggest property developers in the country. In fact, the biggest if you look by value rather than volume. They are saying, as you said, they are concerned whether it can continue, whether it will survive. This is extraordinary. So much of the Chinese economy over the past 5 years, 10 years even, has been tied up in property, about 25% of GDP. Now that this sector is falling out of bed, it's difficult to see a recovery. And we're looking at some buildings that haven't been completed. And the way the Chinese economy, the property sector has worked is a lot of people will buy flats mostly off plan before they're built. They will pay for it. The developer uses that money to continue to build flats, output flats. And so pyramid scheme is too strong a word, but you can see how that model You need a lot of confidence. You need a lot of people wanting to buy to continue that model. It isn't happening right now. Now, you asked me about the policy response. I don't know, Rodas. We would have expected something. See, honestly, would you not have? I really expected something from either the People's Bank of China, the central bank, or the government after those dreadful results that we saw last night from Country Garden. And the world is sort of sitting, waiting with bated breath to see what is the Chinese government going to do. The Chinese government has set a 5% growth target for this year. We all thought that was an easy growth target because we're comparing to last year where the economy was closed for much of the year. We thought that was going to be an easy target. The government historically has put so much into meeting those targets, they may not meet it. What is next?
It's a big, big question. Laurie, about a minute ago, I really have to pick your brain on Elon Musk.
And I'm giving you answers that are so long.
They are informative. The answers are informative. That's why we love to have you on, Laurie. Elon Musk and this investigation, what do you make of it?
Can't do it in a minute. This man, look, another investigation by the U.S. regulators. We have been here before. This one is about a house, a structure he's building in Texas with glass. And all I can think is people who throw stones like Elon Musk should not build glass houses. And I know I tried that. I'm desperate to use that. He's being investigated. We don't have confirmation from the regulators. They don't tend to comment. But Elon Musk is often in trouble with regulators. His punishment, at least the last time he was in trouble, and maybe in a later program we can get into this, his last transgression when he tweeted that he was going to take Tesla private, that never came to be. To me, that's market manipulation. He had a slap on the wrist from the regulators. And you got to ask, do the regulators go soft on Elon Musk? Maybe they do, because so many retail investors hold Tesla stock. Anything that hurts Tesla stock hurts mom and pop investors.
Indeed. Arise business analyst Laurie Laird giving us the tale of the tape with the global business news. Laurie, always a pleasure having you. Looking forward to, talking to you later in the day. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights as always. It's the Global Business Report here on Arise News.